Yes, recording in progress, just to let everyone know. It says join the
Art Deco
Society. I feel like I'm at the
I'm sorry, was I muted when I was giving my big pitch? Can someone raise their hand if they can hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So my name is Margot Gerber, and I'm the current president of the board of the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles. And we were just talking before the show about how delighted we are to see that there's so many people interested in historic preservation, especially since we just announced this event a week ago, and over 200 people have expressed their interest in joining us today. We have a great presentation regarding the Fairfax Theatre that Steve Luftman has actually been working on in various ways for the past many years. And before we get started, I'll just say that this event will probably run about an hour. And if anyone has to go before it's over, we are going to, it is being recorded and we will be posting it on our Vimeo channel. And so we'll put a link on our website within the next day or so. So Steve Luftman is a member of the board of the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles. And since 2019, he has been working with Save Beverly Fairfax to preserve the theater. The theater is both we're working simultaneously on a local designation for it with City of Los Angeles. And Steve also wrote a national application for the National Registry of Historic Places, and that hearing is on Friday. So we thought it would be a nice idea to present this the week of the hearing, so that if anybody does still want to write a letter, you'll have a really in-depth look at the theater and can come to some conclusions about what you might want to write. These letters that we write to the city actually are counted and they are acknowledged. So a lot of people will say to us, oh, nobody cares if we write a letter, but it actually isn't true. So it's really important that if people support this cause, they go to the lengths to email a letter, and we will give you all of the email addresses that you need to send it to. Right now on our website, which is artdecola.org, and we will put these in the chat, there is information about how to write a letter for the Fairfax to the National Registry. So in just a moment, we're going to start Steve's presentation, but I just wanted to mention that the Art Deco Society raises money through our events and our in-person events usually. And we have one coming up on Saturday, July 31st. We're doing a vintage drive-in experience because drive-ins started in the 1930s. So we have a drive-in double feature of Flying Down to Rio, which was the first paired Fred and Ginger. And we have that on a double bill with Love on the Run with Joan Crawford and Clark Gable. And those two films have flying as part of them, which of course was a big thing in the 30s since it was still kind of new to have commercial air travel. And we're doing it on the rooftop that overlooks an old airfield that still has these amazing wooden blimp hangars. So it is in Tustin, which is in Orange County, which may seem very foreign to some of you if you live in Beverly Fairfax. But you can get down there and it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a DJ who's going to be doing vintage music before, and there's a chef-driven food court where you can get dinner and also a full bar for cocktails and things. And you'll be sitting for a while after that, so then you can drive home. So, and you can fly in if you want to off the airfield and just park your plane. So that is on our website. It's called 1930s double feature, and there are still tickets available for that, and it will be socially distanced, and you can wear a mask, and you can be as socially distanced as you want. You can never leave your car, or you can mingle outside. So I just wanted to mention that that's coming up. So Steve Luftman is a historic preservationist who has been instrumental in writing applications for quite a few buildings in Los Angeles, and this Fairfax Theater is his latest. This over to Steve to give his presentation. So I'm gonna get rid of myself, and we will have Steve share his screen now.
Okay. Am I sharing my screen? Well, no, I'm not. Here, hold on.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. There we go. Find that. There we go.
Oh, wait, I'm gonna oh, you are spotlit. I'm gonna unspotlight myself.
For some reason, it doesn't like it when I'm on the full screen. So I'm gonna start out full screen. That share. Yeah. All right. Do we see an image there?
We do see your presentation now, yes.
Wonderful. Good evening. I am Stephen Luftman. I am presenting the history of the 1930 Fairfax Theatre. Save Beverly Fairfax and the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles have applied to landmark the significant building as both a local historic cultural monument and to be included on the National Register of Historic Places. The building was built to serve the new Beverly Fairfax neighborhood. The star is on the screen is the location of the theater at the corner of the northwest corner of Beverly Boulevard and Fairfax Avenue. The southern gateway to the predominant taken 2 years before the theater was built. While the area already had some population, and that population was 27% Jewish, only 2 small buildings were built on this section of Fairfax Avenue before the theater. The Beverly Fairfax Theater the Beverly Fairfax neighborhood played a role in the westward shift of the Los Angeles Jewish diaspora starting in the 1920s. The lack of racially restrictive covenants and the attractive middle multi-family residences provided opportunities for property ownership and drew residents from older Jewish enclaves on the east side of town. By 1937, when this photo was taken, the commercial strip had largely filled in. And by 1940, the 1940 census says that the area was about 66% Jewish. The Los Angeles Times article announcing the plans to build the Fairfax Theater in the June of 1929, and the ground was broken in October. In this photo of the construction, we are looking north from Beverly Boulevard. And if you look at the upper left corner, there's not a single building on Fairfax Avenue. And this was right after that, a few months after they finished the building, March 23rd, opening night. It is a huge deal. Theaters were really important in 1930. And this was the first theater in the neighborhood. The building exemplifies Art Deco style architecture expressed by its vertical emphasis, smooth cladding, abundant angular zigzags, and flat roof. Looking at the soaring tower consisting of a series of step rectangles reminiscent of a miniature Art Deco skyscraper, and is topped with a needle-like spire that terminates with a round disc. 15 neon tubes originally descended vertically from the disc to the base of the needle to form a globe. There are 2 primary facades along the intersection of Beverly Boulevard and Fairfax Avenue. The facades are not flat with ornaments applied to it as a lesser building would be. The zigzag elements project outwards and form from the common plane of the facade. The roofline is articulated with shallow gables and in a regular serrated rhythm. The structure is constructed of poured in place reinforced concrete. It was built by the William Simpson Construction Company, pioneers in the development and use of architectural concrete. They built many historic cultural monuments in Los Angeles, including the 1929 Pantages Theater and the 1960 Lytton Savings Building, which is very important to me. The Fairfax Avenue east-facing elevation has 10 storefronts. The north facade is a sheer concrete wall rising to the height of 4 stories. It's the theater's fly tower, and it descends to 2 stories where it meets Fairfax Avenue. The second floor over the side contains the theater's dressing rooms. The theater was built for both movies and live performances. Here we see the terrazzo at the 7909 location of the Beverly Pharmacy. Originally, it was the Fairfax Grotto restaurant. Original details include Art Deco hardware. Many of the doorposts of the Fairfax Theater building feature mezuzahs. This small rectangular box seen next to the address numbers, mezuzahs are placed at the doorposts of Jewish homes and their places of work. The founders of the theater company, the Fairfax Theater Company, include Gus Metzger. Gus was already considered a pioneer of film exhibition 10 years before the Fairfax Theater Company. He was the second youngest of 11 children in an immigrant Jewish family. Gus got his start in the movie exhibition business in Portland, Oregon, first at movie arcades, then in 1910 as the manager of the Oh Joy Theater. He gained notoriety for his innovative promotions. One of his ingenious promotions featured a live pre-show featuring the film Starlet performing scenes, and local filmgoers were in the background as extras. The pre-show was filmed and then screened the following week, enticing those same filmgoers to return in order to see themselves on the big screen. In 1926, Gus moved to Los Angeles and partnered with the Srere family, the other main partners in the Fairfax Theatre Company. The Srere family immigrated from Russia in 1892. Moses Srere started as a peddler going from town to town in the Midwest. By 1919, he was doing $165,000 deals for buildings in downtown Los Angeles. Moses listed his profession in the 1920 census as a Hebrew teacher and had a small shul in Boyle Heights. When the matriarch of the family died in 1928, the B'nai B'rith Messenger's headline read, "Boyle Heights Jewry loses good friend." The family built a hospital for the community to honor her. Metzger, oops, going forward too much. Sorry, going back, there we go. Metzger and Srere operated, owned, and or built a dozen theaters in Southern California. One of those theaters was the Roxy, seen on the right. It is the last grand Broadway theater built, designed by S. Charles Lee. In 1928, they bought the Palace Theater from the Orpheum Circuit. The Variety article titled "Orpheum Loses a Lemon" refers to the Orpheum group dumping the older money-losing Palace to Metzger Srere. 3 months later, Gus's new policy was setting attendance records. And that's the LA Times article, "Palace Policy Rated a Success." Nelson Stein owned and built the Fairfax Theatre building. He was also a leader in the Jewish community, serving as the second vice president of Temple Emmanuel. Most of the first businesses he leased to in the building served the local Jewish community. The prominent local architect, W.C. Pennell, designed the Fairfax Theatre. Pennell was born in Portland, Maine, and moved with his mother to Ventura as a teen. At 26, he got a job with the eminent Los Angeles architect, John C. Austin, as a draftsman. A year later, he became an architect and Austin's partner. With Austin, Pennell designed many downtown steel-framed height limit buildings, along with civic and industrial projects. In 1914, Mr. Pennell founded his own firm. He designed elegant residences, schools, and at least 2 other theaters. There were over 40 documented events held at the theater. Much of this information comes from the archives of the B'nai B'rith Messenger, a weekly newspaper that chronicled Jewish life in Los Angeles from 1897 to 1995. There were charitable fundraisers for women's volunteer organizations, including Hadassah, the B'nai B'rith Women's Auxiliary, the National Council for Jewish Women, and many others. The theater's connection with Hadassah was particularly strong. They held 10 events there, and I'm happy to say, among the many letters in support of our nominations is one from the current president of the Southern California chapter. The Beverly Fairfax Jewish Community Center was another important institution to raise funds at the subject building. In 1943, the Beverly Fairfax JCC opened a block west of the Jewish migration from Boyle Heights to the Fairfax district. Many of the articles about the events thanked Mr. Metzger for loaning the theater. During World War II, theaters across the country held war bond drives. Gus Metzger was appointed the state chairman of the Motion Pictures Theaters War Finance Committee. The Fairfax Theater's efforts were distinctly Jewish in nature. The drive was organized by the Beverly Fairfax Jewish Community Center's Victory House. A 1943 article in the B'nai B'rith Messenger, oops, I'm behind this, there we go. In my head, where am I? Oh, there we go. A 1943 article in the B'nai B'rith Messenger read, "Victory House spies bomber, swift death to Nazi fascists from the skies as a direct war effort, contribution from the men, women, and children of the Beverly Fairfax neighborhood." I got my slides mixed up. Sorry about that. So the first Jewish synagogues moved to the Fairfax neighborhood in 1933. There was Etz Jacobs and the Fairfax Temple and the Western Jewish Institute. And they moved in 1934. All three held fundraisers at the Fairfax Theatre. The district's proximity of two synagogues was crucial, as Jewish law sets the maximum distance one can walk on Shabbat, the Jewish Sabbath, at 0.598 of a mile. Many of the fundraisers featured live performances by well-known celebrities of their day, including Eddie Cantor, George Jessel, and Gene Autry. There were other performers who are significantly meaningful to the Jewish community. These performers included Fegela Penitz, who is known as the songstress of the people. Here is Fegela singing in Yiddish, as she probably did in 1939 at the fundraiser for the Western Jewish Institute.
Dein Fiedel in der Hand und spiel mir das Liedl wie ne goldene Melan. Amol fleckt mein Mame mit Herzen gefühl, das Liedl mir singen, oi spiel es mir spiel. Amol fleckt mein Mame mir Herzen gefühl, das Liedl mir singen, oi spiel es mir spiel.
For 31 years, the theater featured High Holy Day services. These theaters were often featured over the services at the synagogues themselves. The importance of the building is not just the theater. The 13 storefronts and the second floor offices became a resource and a magnet for the Jewish community. The first Jewish delicatessen on Fairfax Avenue was in the building. The first kosher meat market was also in the building, and the first Jewish bakery on Fairfax. Later, there were bookstores, and as exemplified by Dr. Reinhardt, the building's second floor offices served the neighborhood with doctors and dentists. Dr. Reinhardt was previously the chief of OBGYN at the National Public Health in Berlin, Germany. A victim of Nazi persecution of Jewish physicians, Dr. Reinhardt escaped with 65% of Americans saw a movie weekly. These classified ads from 1929 to 1930 advertised the theater as an anchor for adjacent construction. One ad reads, "The hot spot, 3 blocks west of the new Fairfax Theater." Another says, "Lot near new Fairfax Theater, $15,000. Will sell for $20,000 when theater is finished." In spite of the fact that it was picked up historic surveys, a luxury housing project that included saving only the facade was approved in 2013. There was an attempt to landmark the building in 2010. In fact, the Los Angeles Office of Historic Resources recommended it become a landmark, but that effort centered on the building's architecture and sadly failed. Fortunately, historic preservation has evolved into heritage preservation over the last 10 years. Preservation used to be about saving pretty buildings, while now it recognizes the importance of our diverse communities. We are hopeful that through our efforts, a better use of the building can take place. I would like to quote the renowned author and professor of Jewish culture in America, Deborah Dash Moore. She wrote in support of our efforts, "I am aware of the potential for the theater to speak to a broad, pluralist, and multiracial audience about the 20th century history of Los Angeles, much as the tenement House Museum on the Lower East Side in New York City effectively addresses multiple audiences, from out-of-town visitors to local school children, so that the Fairfax Theatre, with imaginative leadership, could become a site of learning and discovery. So I want to thank you for supporting this Art Deco treasure, which has served as a cultural touchstone for the Jewish community. And please sign the petition. We're less than 100 signatures to 1,000. Write an email in support and attend the hearings. The national hearing is Friday, July 30th, and the local hearing is August 5th, the following Thursday. Thank you.
So thank you, Steve. This history, I should add, that Steve uncovered in issues of the B'nai B'rith Messenger was something that was not available until very recently. So can you talk a little bit about that, Steve?
Yeah, so one of the things we had approved to be reheard in Los Angeles, because it was already heard and rejected, was that there was new information discovered, and there certainly was. The B'nai B'rith Messenger which was told about the daily goings on in the Jewish community of Los Angeles, was not digitized until after 2013. So none of that was available in 2010, and there were only about, which is actually significant, there were about 20 articles about events in the LA Times, but there were countless articles and ads about businesses and events, and there were information on the people who founded the theater, and none of that was available when the application, easily available. They would have had to gone to New York. That's where the microfilm for the B'nai B'rith Messenger was held, and gone through issue by issue to discover the same information that you could now search for on the web.
So this is a neighborhood theater, and neighborhood theaters are really important, or they were very important in that era for building community. And so would you say that this theater kind of did its fair share for building community?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I saw the ads, that was another thing that was not in the previous report. It's a pain to search classified ads. They come up and search, but then you can't see where the hell it is, so you have to go through the page. But I did that research, and there were all these ads saying, using the fact that this is the Fairfax Theater is going to be coming to our neighborhood as a reason to move to the neighborhood, to buy property in the neighborhood, to open a store right next door to the neighborhood. What is now I think it's a Goodwill. It's a very cool, streamlined, modern building. Was built, had an ad. I'm gonna go back and I'll show you the ad for that property. And it was actually, so it's the ad says Cotton Market, stock market. Was a huge developer of the whole WILSHIRE community area. And I guess this was 1930, the stock market literally just crashed. And he was trying to unload his property that was right next door to the Fairfax Theater. So it just shows what a magnet to building the theater was. All of a sudden, what was it was a subdivision, but it didn't have a heart. It didn't have a retail strip. It didn't have a theater, and all of a sudden it had a place, a place where people could see other people outside of their homes.
So it was very fashionable to be near the theater, since it represented modernity and a big investment in that area. And then so the retail kind of grew up around it down Fairfax to the north.
Yes. So the buildings that came afterwards through where it largely filled in by 1940, but there were still a few empty lots. And then after the war, there was a lot of people moving, people who survived the Holocaust, moving to the neighborhood. And the neighborhood became a magnet for that community.
When I moved into the neighborhood, there were still a lot of people who had bought property at that time, you know, and were establishing themselves. And there were a lot of ambulances because at that time, that population was pretty elderly. But the neighborhood has turned over quite a bit, and we know it, or anybody who's, you know, probably under 30 knows it as the place to go if you need streetwear, a skateboard deck, trendy clothes. And so it's kind of turning over again. And this is sort of a moment to memorialize this period where it was a heavily Jewish neighborhood. You could ask anybody in LA and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's a Jewish neighborhood. Yeah. So this is kind of the moment to try to preserve that memory. So
yeah, it's much like, I mean, we still have the Breed Street Shul, which hopefully will be put to better use in Boyle Heights. That memorializes that neighborhood once being the center of the Jewish community of Los Angeles.
Yeah, and somebody was mentioning that it was ground zero. Well, it's Kim Cooper. Yeah. Hey, Kim, who I couldn't see your name. I had it cut off for a second, but it was ground zero for the protests, and has become an area that a lot of young people know about. You know, so it is evolving, and it's. I guess we should say that there's sort of and you know what? I'd love to bring Dale Kendall up as I say this, because the neighborhood is sort of divided. There's a Hasidic population that lives mostly in single family dwellings that is closer to La Brea. And then there's the area that Save Beverly Fairfax focused on for the historic district, which runs up to the side streets that end at Fairfax. So do you have anything else to show us on your screen, or do you want to?
Somebody asked to see pictures of the interior, so which I don't have readily available, but they're also it's in sad shape, but I think has potential. So the current shape of the interior. There was a picture of go back to it, of the auditorium.
Oh yeah, we can, so there's a wonderful website that is called the Los Angeles Historic Theater's blog spot, and maybe Christopher or Jessica can quickly Google that and put it in the chat. And they have some of the last known pictures, because when the theater closed as it was a Regency, I think was the operator, they were in a couple people that love historic theaters were in there, and they captured some of the last color photos. We didn't realize that the owner had compromised the interior until our cultural heritage hearing a few weeks ago. But you know, anything can be turned around. When you have pictures, you can always restore it and bring it back.
So, and one of the things I want to say is that although the main thing they did was take down the plaster ceiling, but they left the framework up, and they left, if you look in this photo I have up now, it has these incredible light fixtures, built-in light fixtures. They actually left those, they did not destroy them. And so it has potential. It could be an art center. It could be a theater again. It certainly could be. There are much better uses, giving its position in the community, its physical location, and where it is at the base of the prominent retail center of the area, than being a luxury apartment building.
And yeah, and it's right across the street, for those that aren't quite oriented to where it is. A lot of people have been confusing it with the silent movie theater, which is actually on Fairfax and is now called Brain Dead Cinema. But this theater is catty corner to the CBS studios.
Yeah, it's exactly.
So should we bring Dale up?
Yeah, bring Dale up.
Okay. So if you stop sharing your screen, I will bring Dale into the picture.
Do that.
There's Dale.
Am I sharing still, or?
I'm still seeing, yeah, I'm still seeing your
How
PowerPoint.
do I unshare? I've lost the ability.
Oh, the meeting controls. I think if you just kind of mouse around, you'll find them.
Okay. Where did you go?
I think I'm here.
I hear Dale.
We can hear you anyway, so that's good. Okay,
Okay,
I'm
cool.
gonna actually turn your camera on and everything too. Do you have your camera on, Dale?
Yeah.
Oh, someone already got you. Okay. Our busy hands behind the scenes. So Dale Kendall is one of the chiefs of Save Beverly Fairfax, which got the neighborhood onto as being a historic. I'm hearing some feedback. Sorry. They went to Sacramento, as we're doing with the Fairfax 2 years ago, and they had the neighborhood designated, or half of the streets that are between Beverly Boulevard and Fairfax. And you'll see signs if you go into the neighborhood now. And so Dale and Nora Wyman spearheaded that project. And then Dale said, you know, we can't just let this Fairfax Theater languish. And Steve, we need you to do some more research and figure out what's going on with it.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
I kept looking at the theater and going to myself, why isn't this building landmarked? I knew it was a great Art Deco building. And I've lived here my whole life since 1964 and had no idea of the Jewish connection. And I just knew it was a great old building. And when Steve started to uncover the information, I was so surprised that I didn't even know that the temple that I was bar mitzvahed in 1977 had fundraisers there before they even opened to raise money for the temple. I was like surprised. So it was such interesting information. And I just always assumed, I guess, that Canter's was the first delicatessen here, but obviously it wasn't.
yes,
So,
Canter's didn't open until 1953. Well after the theater was there. It was in Royal Heights previously, but it opened the Fairfax Avenue location in 1953.
So, you know, I'm hoping that something really great comes of this for the theater, because it really deserves, you know, the respect of a historic building.
Yeah.
You know, they don't build them like that anymore, as we all know.
Yeah.
But it's more than just a beautiful building. It has special meaning to Los Angeles, and I guess specifically the Jewish people, which I don't think many of them even know as of yet until they hear about this report or this nomination.
And this is history.
Turn on the camera.
And this is history that you know, it's not recorded. This is not the history. It will be recorded because it's going to be on the National Register. It's going to be recommended for the National Register. So it will be recorded, but it's not history like this as usually recorded. History of you know, the rich Protestant community, rich white community is, and this was just a neighborhood theater that it was more than that, because with its stores, with its professional offices, and there were no professional offices to house doctors and dentists before this building was built in the neighborhood. So it was like this little mall to help the neighborhood develop. And I wanted to answer, so Jack Jason brought up that Canter's was originally a theater. It was a theater before Canter's, but originally it was built as a Safeway supermarket. Wasn't very super, it was a small Safeway market. And then in 1937, it was converted into a theater. And it's interesting because that was a theater that truly, it had it showed Yiddish movies, and that was like their specialty. But as I've told other people, the people who came to this neighborhood, the kids who went to the movies, they wanted to assimilate. They didn't want to watch the Yiddish movies like their parents were speaking at home. They wanted to see what other kids were seeing. And that's, while the Fairfax had special programs with Yiddish singers and Yiddish performers, it was about American movies here and adjacent to Hollywood.
It's also very interesting because some of the older people in our neighborhood who know about the nomination now are upset that they didn't ask their grandparents or pay attention to their grandparents or their parents to find out the history, because as Steve said, they wanted to be Americans. They wanted to assimilate. They weren't interested in what the older people were doing. They wanted to be Americans. So it's kind of lost history that Steve found. And, I think it's really important. Maybe we could open this up to some questions if people have questions, Steve.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we've been combing the chat for questions. Somebody was asking about, does the National Register allow it to not be destroyed or allowed to be restored as opposed to just leaving the outside shell for the developer to turn into apartments?
So because they already have, I'm gonna go back to 2 years ago when Dale said we have to do metal, and it was lost, but at least they were saving the facade, which is not great, not good preservation. And finally I said, or actually Dale said, we should go and find out, maybe they don't have the entitlements to build that apartment building anymore. Maybe they run out. And so we went downtown and to the planning department. This was in September of 2019, and asked, do these entitlements still, are they valid? And we were told that no, there's no record of any extension. They ran out at the time 3 years ago in 2016. And they have no entitlements to build anything. So then we proceeded with writing the nomination. Well, it turned out that at least the planning department said, oh, they were misfiled. They did file an extension. And so they have valid, as far as the city is concerned, they have valid plans and entitlements that allow them to build this building here, even if it becomes a, what would be called a historic asset. Their plans to build this building would still be valid until it's February of 2024. And that counts above, because it precedes the historic status for the theater. They could still do that, but they couldn't do anything with either the national or local designation. They couldn't do anything after that date, and they couldn't do anything except for what they have entitlements for. So they can't just tear down the building. And they haven't built anything. Literally, they've had these entitlements for 8 years now, and they haven't done anything with them. So and I think this is a great first step as far exploring this building to a much better, much more civic use.
Dave, I can ask a question for the audience. If they go ahead with the project that they have planned, what would actually be saved of the building, or what actually at this point would have protection?
So they wrote in their entitlements that the exterior facades of the building would be restored. The marquee and the entryway would be restored, and the ticket booth would be restored, and the windows of the building would be restored to how it is in the picture behind me. Picture. And so, as I told Dale, you know, it's a facadectomy, and they are never good, but it's better than it's building the 20, 30-story building fast at all. But I really think this would be a stepping stone to putting a better use of the building for community use.
I guess I could say something. I've shown the pictures of the, obviously it's the owner's building. He makes the decisions, but I've shown the interior to a preservation contractor who deals in very large buildings. And he said it is very possible to restore this building if somebody wanted to. And I've also shown it to some artists that actually worked on the Apple store downtown, the pictures of before and after, and they say it's definitely doable if somebody wants to do it. So it's just gives a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
So I guess we should say that, you know, empty buildings are not good. It means the buildings are decaying. It means they're in jeopardy. There have been 2 fires there in the past 3 months. And the most recent one, like
empty, which makes it even, in a way, maybe that's worse. I don't know, because the retail spaces are still being rented out.
yeah.
And I would say, like, some of the stores, like Bargain Fair, has been there since 1960, owned by the same family. And the Silver City, what's it? Silver Studio, Silver City. What's the name of the carpet sales place, Dale? The carpet place.
It's been there for forever.
It's been there since the mid-60s. They've been going out of business since the mid-60s.
My mother bought a rug there on sale because they were going out of business 10 years ago.
And they're still going out of business. Silver City. Fairfax Silver City. Let's look it up.
We haven't reached out. I just see a question running across here. We haven't really reached out to anybody regards to talking to the owner or anything yet. We're just still focused on landmarking it.
Yeah, we're
at this point
on the 2 designations right now, because we really feel that would be a great first step. But I think I foresee us definitely going down the road of trying to motivate.
And we would want the owner to do well.
Yeah.
You know,
he's owned the building since 1970. He actually owns another historic building in Santa Monica that is now the Cropper Hotel, that did a very respectful adaptive reuse. It was originally an office building, the Santa Monica Professional Building, I believe it's called, and now it's a hotel. So there is a possibility, you know, that I think it's very possible that we could do something here.
So can you, Steve, just mention a little bit about what protections the National Registry would place on the building?
So Dale, you might be more adept. I'll just, it'll make it a historic resource, which means that any new project would have to go through CEQA. And preservation in California, in Los Angeles, it never excludes 100% demolition. But if a building is listed as a landmark, it has to go through what's called a California environmental review. And there has to be a reason that it is better to tear down the building than to save the building. Other landmarks have been torn down in the city, but many have been saved that were literally bulldozers were about to come. One of those is the Wiltern Theater. The Wiltern Theater was literally a month from getting torn down before it was saved. Landscape came through.
Do either of you know how big the apartment building or condos or whatever it is was supposed to be?
It's like a 7-story building, 6 stories.
Yes. So it's not crazy. It's not like the ones proposed in Hollywood with the Crossroads project. There's supposed to be 32 stories on an earthquake fault.
Yeah, it's not that huge, which is one of the reasons why he had to go through a lot of, this was in 2013. Sorts of entitlements that were very extensive to be able to build a 6.5, 7-story building. Whereas now it is much easier to build a big building. They would be able to build a 20-story building. And that's one of the things just getting landmark protection right now would be they couldn't build anything but what they already have entitlements for.
So what's the best thing that people who have been moved by your presentation and want to help, what is the best thing that they can do?
Well, we'd love to get to 1,000 signatures on the petition. Write letters in support. If you have a personal story, especially if it goes back to maybe Etz Jacob, who had Yom Kippur and High Holy Day services up until the late 70s, maybe even 80. They had services there. If you have a story about that, if you have a unique story about it, put that in the letter. If not, just say, I support, this is part of the community and I support this preservation of the building in the letter. And listen to the hearings. I don't think a lot of people have to speak at the federal hearing, but it's always good and the Los Angeles hearing when people call in. The people who are on it's the California, it's the State Historic Committee. They're very focused and they really understand the way that the legislation is written. So I feel that there's not going to be any problem with that going through there, but the local committee, the Los Angeles maybe could be a little bit more attuned to what the public thinks.
So the next step for the local, I believe, is we go back to cultural heritage on August 5th. Is that correct?
That is right. That's Thursday. It's a week from this Thursday. So
it's August 5th, I believe.
Yeah, August 5th. It's a Thursday. And then there's more steps. Then it becomes history. It really becomes political. And if our council person, Paul Koretz, supports it. It will go through. And he didn't support it 10, 11 years ago, and he gave a reason for it, and they convinced him that it was not viable as a theater. He now, what we've heard from the offices, he now feels that the developer has not done right by it, and he's very concerned. And we think that he can be persuaded to support it going through for the full city council. So anyways, there'll be a hearing on the 5th of August. Probably it'll go to the planning and committee, which is a committee of the city council. And that is, if council member Koretz supports it, it will go through there, and it will go through the city council and become a monument. But
I just put in the chat the page on our website where, oops, you know what? I think I just put the wrong link in. We will put the link in for our active projects page in preservation. Maybe Jessica or Chris could find it for the Fairfax Theatre page, because right now we have a deadline of August 3rd for people to send letters, and then that would be for the Cultural Heritage Commission, and those are the historians and architects that are on a commission to determine if they think something should be a landmark in the city. They make a recommendation, then following that, if that passes, that is actually our second hearing. And then at that point, we would get scheduled for planning and land use management, which is also called PLUM. As an abbreviation, and then we would have you write letters to the subset of city council that are on that committee. And that, as Steve said, is where it gets political. And it's important to get these letters every step of the way. So if you're just tuning in about this now and you haven't written a letter yet, there's still time to write letters, because the city really does look to see if people are interested in it. If we don't do our due diligence for outreach, then nobody's going to write a letter because nobody knows about it. So we've been trying our darndest to spread the word so that these buildings get a chance, at least, to be heard.
If you live in Council District 5, Paul Koretz's district, please put that in there, that he represents you and you want the building to be preserved.
He is not, he won't be reelected. He will term out in November, but we understand that probably somebody from his office will end up being voted in. So it'll be kind of similar mindset, hopefully. And so council districts do care, or they should care, if their constituents want something. And this is where the building is located.
He's running for another office next year.
Oh.
He's running for
controller.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. So we're not done with Koretz yet. So yeah, so it's CD5, and if you live in this neighborhood that's bounded by Fairfax and Melrose, you are in District 5, even though District 4 kind of comes in across the street, I think.
Yeah, Television City is District 4.
Actually, everybody could write a letter and it would be helpful.
Everyone.
Yes, but you don't even have to live in the United States to write a letter, because it matters that people all over the world think that, you know, a building is important. It doesn't matter where you live.
I mean, the thing about heritage preservation is that it tells the story of communities, and people should care about that. Who care about the world should care about other parts of the world and those stories being told there, and what people had to go through to build a community. And so it is important that people around the world write in.
So someone asked if we have a template. We do have a template that is still on the page that we put in the chat. It's always good to, if you have personal recollections, to personalize the letter. But you can certainly start with the letter we've written. And you can also just simply, either when you call in to speak for these things, because speakers are important too, and they're all on Zoom now, so it's easier to do it. You can have it running in the background, and then when it comes up, you can, listen. But what was I saying? You can just say, I support the Art Deco Society's and Save Beverly Fairfax's nomination of this building. You don't have to actually say any more than that. But if you do have a personal connection, you can do that too. So you can definitely look at our website and you can find a sample letter. And we also usually create Facebook events for all of our hearings so that you can share them and you can ask questions or add information on the wall. So we try to make it as accessible as possible. And I know this process isn't something that's known to everyone, but it's something that everybody can get involved in. I didn't know anything about it, did not go to school in historic preservation, but I got bitten by the bug at some point and just wanted to learn what I could to keep some of the heritage that I love seeing and learning about active in the city. And the day that we had our last hearing at Cultural Heritage, we were on the agenda with a Baptist church in Venice, and it was actually both of these nominations had appeared before the commission in the past and were coming back just ironically on the same day. And the commission actually, everybody's looking at things in a much different lens than they were even a year ago. And so the commissioners were saying, we're so glad we had the do-over on both of these buildings because the church had deep Black history and our theater has deep Jewish history, and they had both come before. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You guys, any last closing remarks before everybody goes and eats dinner?
Dale, got anything? You're muted.
Oh, he's saying something wonderful, but we can't hear him.
We can't
Dale,
hear you,
you're gonna
Dale.
have to say it again.
Okay, I would like to thank everybody involved with trying to landmark this theater. It really does deserve to be landmarked, and we're hoping that happens. Thank you very much.
I second
All
that.
right, we'll see you guys again. We will have more architecture-related events and also cultural history-related events in September. And if you like social events, we're probably going to be doing a cocktails on August 22nd in the Silver Lake sort of Echo Park area as we move all over. And if you want to drive down to Orange County next weekend, we're going to have our double feature, 1930s double feature drive-in.
And if we win the National Register, we'll have a little celebration there too, I think.
Yes, exactly. And in October, the Beverly Fairfax neighborhood will be having its block party, right, Dale? Uh-oh.
Oh, Dale, you're muted again. Mute. There you go.
Correct. On October 24th, we're having our celebration of our historic district on the 300 block of Sierra Bonita, which is 5 or 6 blocks from the theater. So it's the 300 block of North Sierra Bonita at 10 a.m. and you're all invited.
And we'll do something about it on social media or in our newsletter to let people know. If you haven't really explored the neighborhood, all the side streets, Gardner and Poinsettia and Sierra Bonita, all of them, there's such an amazing array of architecture in period revival styles. There's like things that look like Robin Hood should be popping out of them next to a mission style building, next to an Art Deco building. It's just wonderful, wonderful architecture. So go explore the neighborhood. It's a great walking neighborhood. And will there be a pickle booth? I don't know, Kim, we have a couple months to get a pickler into the mix. So let's look for one. And yes, we will send our newsletters out to all the attendees. If you don't want to be on the list, you can simply opt off. And if you do want to stay on the list, we send a few emails a month when we're actively having different kinds of events. So thank you for those of you that aren't already followers of ours and that found out about this on Eventbrite or other ways. And feel free to email us and let us know how you did find out about it. And someone put something in the chat about more photos at LAP, the Los Angeles Public Library's website, lapl.org. Shades of LA photo collection.
They do have some nice photos on LAPL. Yes.
Great.
Pickles for all.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you both.
Pickles and donuts.
Thank you all for attending.
Thank you very much.